Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Metroid Other M. In the last part, we finished off our business over in Sector 2 and made our way back to Sector 3 and got the grapple beam after saving Anthony from certain demise. And now that we have the grapple beam, we can cross over this giant lava pit room that prevented us from chasing down the mysterious creature earlier. Before we head through that door that's obviously there though, head south here and hug down here to find ourselves, I believe it's a missile tank? Oh no, this is an energy part. Or is that a tank? No, that's a part. Admittedly, barring the glows of the power-ups being different, like the Excel charge is yellow, the missiles are blue, the energy-relevated items are red, I think the energy tank and part are a bit hard to tell apart until you actually grab them. But I can't tell if that's just because the design never really stuck with me or not. And hey, if that is what it is, well, that's a me problem, isn't it? Dread does a little better in that regard, because everything is unique looking again. Hello, buddy. It's good to see the Vorash again. It's been since we first entered Sector 3, we saw that thing. And, well, if you look at the room below us, that looks a little boss arena-y, doesn't it? Might be time we finally take care of that thing. With that said, keep in mind that the Vorash swallowed that grapple point there. It might be pretty important. With that said, the main reason we went through that middle morph ball track is because we need to open a hatch to enter that main room down below us. Why they couldn't just have that happen in a cutscene and have those grapple points get activated by us activating that terminal, I don't know. Either way, let's start this fight. Alright, the Vorash is a deceptively easy boss fight. For the most part, it's going to be jumping in and out all around the little lava island, the little rock islands that you can stand on. And whenever it jumps over it, you can do a charge shot with good enough timing to hit its weak spot, but occasionally it'll just stay there looking at you in the lava. You can missile it to stun it, or you can just use the grapple beam straight up if it's roaring at you to pull it onto the island. And when you do that, you can use missiles for usually the best amount of damage you can in the time given. It can occasionally just flop onto the island as well to try and do a little charge attack on you, but it does that very rarely. There are grapple points for you to switch between the two islands here. I forget if there's an attack it has at any point in the fight, though, that makes you need to use one of those. Like, say, if it makes the island sink or something like that. If it does have that, either it's rare to do, or it only does that if you're on an island for way too long. Yeah, the timing for grappling it on can be a little tight, and even then, you can't get over-reliant on that, as at about halfway through the fight, it swallows the grapple point completely, and you can no longer rely on pulling it onto the island. With that said, I feel by that point in the fight, the damage values in boss fights in this game are a little weird, I find, as sometimes I feel they're a bit more skewed towards using the charge shot than missiles, and vice versa. It really depends on what the fight is and how often it's vulnerable, I find. That said, when you're up close like this, definitely use missiles on the weak point. It's always been odd to me, because this is such an iconic part of the game to me, but the boss fight's not that complicated or even super important. Maybe it's just because the Vorash kind of scared me on my way back through Sector 3 for the first time all those years ago. But then at the same time, though, now that I think about it, the boss fights are probably the part of this game I remember the most because they're easily the most visually active and, well, they're the most exciting part of the game, bar none. Which is admittedly a bit of a trend that started in Other M moving forward. Because, thinking about it, from Other M onwards, namely, I guess Federation Force as well in this regard, Samus Returns and Dread, the boss fights are very much more in focus than the main platforming when it comes to, like, how intense they are. And to an extent, that was also the case in the Prime trilogy, I suppose. But, like, earlier 2D Metroid didn't really focus on that nearly as much. It was more about the exploration.
Samus, it looks like that monster is headed to the geothermal electric power generator. Track it and put an end to it.
With that said, Dread's definitely the best of both worlds in that regard because it has a really good focus on the boss fights, but its exploration is also incredible. You know, looking back, I really wish I had recorded my reactions to the Direct where Dread was revealed because that was an unholy sound I made. Hell, full disclosure, today is February 10th. We are, I forget if it's a day or 2 days after that other Nintendo Direct that happened in 2022. And when Klonoa showed up and made an unholy sound, same with Live Alive getting a remake. That was a good Direct. That was a good Direct. Triangle Strategy continues to look really good. Dread getting an update surprised me, honestly. Dread mode sounds terrifying. Rookie mode is good to have for people who find the base difficulties too hard, because Dread is a tough game. The boss rush in April is what's really interesting me, because I love the boss fights in Dread, except for the experiment. That fight, I can never get the Shine Spark combo up on. Now, this room's a little unique in that we have a crane here that has a grapple point on it. But on the other end of that crane is a target you can shoot missiles at. And you need to shoot missiles at it after you take care of all the enemies, of course, just to make things progress a little smoother. Because whenever you hit that target with a missile, it rotates the crane in that direction a certain amount. And you need to do that in two directions. You need to, A, rotate the grapple point so you can get to the door anyway. But first, you see there's a hologram projector up there. We need to trigger that and turn off the holograms. This is the kind of set piece I can see a Prime game using to better effect. Like, this is something that would be very natural if it was a thing in, say, Phazon Mines in Prime 1, or even, which Prime 3 area would this really belong in? I guess it would belong either in Elysia for a couple of reasons, or Pirate Homeworld, maybe. I haven't played Prime 2 or 3 in a while. It's been a hot minute since Prime 1 as well, but not nearly as long. Most of my memory of the level design right now is because I just watched a full stream playthrough of all three of them in a row on YouTube. Still fun games, still fun games. Prime 2's design still irks the hell out of me, but well, I'll get to that when I eventually get to the Prime games. Although, funnily enough, I originally thought I'd be getting to the Prime games before Other M, but whoops. It is interesting thinking back, though, because I brought up when we were in that one room towards the end of Sector 1 with the second Grognak that I have a lot of memories playing this game back in 2010 with specific things, namely watching split-up episodes of Katekyo Hitman Reborn on YouTube at the time. But that was also around the time I wanted to start doing LPs. I just didn't until the next year, and even then loosely, because that first year was very spotty, and then there were a couple other years that were spotty, but those were different reasons. This was a game I remember distinctly doing that with. Like, just imagining what I would say, how I would edit it, even. As loose as my editing was back when. I have distinct memories of, I think it was my original Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 6 LP. Can't remember which entirely. I didn't know how to edit properly yet still. And I did the speed up in Movies Maker at the time for the boss rush, because that's always what I do. But I didn't realize that speeding it up didn't automatically mute the music, so I was very surprised that it got sped up. And then I didn't think about cutting out my own audio track, so I think you can hear me humming in it or something like that. Ah, memories. Also, there's a lot of Super Zebesians in this room, so be careful of them. You can ignore them for the most part, because once you get over to this top half of the room, they can't get to you anymore. But you also can't jump all the way to the door yet, because it's locked. You need to activate a terminal on the east side of the room, quote-unquote. The minimap of this area reminds me a lot of the logo of the Bonds from Mega Man Legends. I do think the game needed a little more puzzle variety rather than just kill all enemies or find the said terminal you need to. But it's tricky because a lot of puzzles in Metroid devolve into either that, like in the Prime series and here, or just destroy the hidden blocks that you need to. And hidden blocks, I think, are a good way to do environmental puzzles in a 2D Metroid game, but in 3D, those don't really work. Like, a lot of the puzzles in Prime come down to scan this, destroy that with the needed item, or find the hidden Morph Ball tunnel or Morph Ball bomb switch. Now, this area, I don't know why, it took me a little bit to understand what I had to do here in my first playthrough. By the way, now that we have the wave beam, the sentry turret bosses that we got the diffusion beam from go down real quick because you can just shoot right through their armor plating. What we need to do here is charge up a speed booster, because that's how you shine spark up here and make it to the next area. As a kid, I distinctly remember trying to do for like 5 minutes there, a single wall jump, when you think by now I would have realized the wall jump is double wall in this game. It's forced into being that because having a single wall jump in a game like this would completely potentially break story progression. You could completely ignore story flags doing that, or certain cutscenes, or even the few unique power-ups the game has, now that I think about it. Barring the enemies, this always also reminded me of the intro section to Brave Fencer Musashi, because I think I first played and saw that game around the same time I played this, from memory. Maybe a little bit of a year off there, somewhere in there. Either way, now we're at the top of this tower. And our good friend's back. Hey, Radogian, how are you? This one prefers to stay in the air compared to the last two encounters, though. So charge shots are probably going to be better just because they do a better job of getting to the enemy fast. Missiles you can still use, but you're probably going to want to save it for when it does its usual red charge, because it's not going to be worth the damage values you can potentially get off on it. The charges are also a lot easier to dodge when it's airborne, as are its missiles, than its gigantic arm swipes. When it flies off to the distance, that's, I believe, when it's going to start charging its red, and at that point, the fight's over. It's weird that in some ways this enemy is probably this game's Virgil, because we fight this thing more often than a certain boss fight that's technically recurring. Either way, now we're done. Just gotta wait for it to get up there. Come on, charge your red beam. I love when science doorways, life force, are tied to enemies. Sometimes it makes sense, like they have some sort of near field that makes things not work. But why was that elevator tied to the Radogian? Did it like shut it offline temporarily by crashing through? I don't know. I will say, that enemy type is definitely the worst when it comes to one thing. Suddenly showing up and you not being prepared to sense move out of the way. Okay, this room. Hi there again, Dragotix. This room is rather infamous for a game-breaking bug that Nintendo had to release a program for on the Wii Shop in order to fix save files for. The door at the end of this room, I believe, is locked until you defeat that Dragotix no matter what. But, depending on your actions when you first entered Sector 3, it would be glitched, locked permanently. In that, the next room after this is that corridor with the Des Gigas, and where I had to use concentration to restore my health in like part 4 or 5, I forget exactly when. It's the room immediately after the room you get the ice beam in. If when you first enter Sector 3, you enter this room and leave without taking care of the Des Gigas, that door is permanently locked shut. You had to download a fixing channel to fix your save file there, and I think there are downloadable saves you can do nowadays on like GameFAQs. But yeah, it was rough. They had to even do I think a message on the Metroid website to apologize for that. It was bad. The Wii had a weird amount of those too, because there was that one, of course. But Skyward Sword had something similar, where depending on your actions during about the middle third, you couldn't progress one way or another until due to some weird similar error. And even Twilight Princess, I think V1.0 on Wii, had a similar problem, where if you save and quit at a certain location, you would load in after reloading your save on the wrong side of a certain bridge, and you just couldn't beat the game that way. You had to restart. It's weird flagging that I can understand someone missing, but oh boy, I'm glad I've never had it happen. Because I'm of the type where, in a Metroid game at least, I don't really backtrack to save points. I always move on to the next one, because to me, death in a Metroid game is usually really short. Oh no, I lost maybe 5 minutes of progress. At least casually. Because I only use save points when I really have to in the 2D games. Prime is a little bit of a different beast with that, as is this game technically. But I never feel like I have a need to always backtrack. I can see someone maybe taking a lot of health from the Des Gigas in that room after getting the Ice Beam, and instead of using concentration to restore their health or willing to wait to the next save room, they backtrack to the first one at the very start of the area. And yeah, that's bad. Thankfully, nowadays, it's such a well-known issue that I feel it's easy to take care of in some regards. Like, even just looking up the glitch will probably bring you up to that. You can go, oh no, and just download the save file. Yeah, you might not have the exact same amount of items collected, but again, getting items in this game isn't a big need anyway. And it also doesn't take too long to get most of the items, because honestly, most of the puzzles in this game are super quick. There's no, say, here's this entire room where you have a 3-frame Shine Spark window. Good luck! God, I love Zero Mission. I hate that room. I hate that room in Ridley's Lair. That is one of the worst missile tanks. Or is it a power bomb? I think it's a power bomb now that I think about it. In the series. Another forced first-person segment. That's probably one of the easier ones of those in the game because it's relatively big and in the center of the frame. It does blend in a little bit color-wise, but at least you can tell something's there. Also, you can just take care of these guys pretty quickly. I think there's an item you can technically get by using a Shine Spark in this next room, but there's other ways to get it anyway. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 12, that scene. See you guys then.